Welcome back to the channel. Today we're exploring the key leaders and events of the Korean War, a conflict that shaped the modern world. From daring invasions to historic decisions, let's uncover the story behind this intense three-year war. Let's dive in. Let's start with the North Korean and Chinese side, where we meet figures who loom large in history. First, we have Kim Il-sung. Now, Kim Il-sung wasn't just the leader of North Korea. He was a figure driven by a potent mix of ideology and ambition. He dreamt of a unified Korea, but under the banner of communism, and this vision fueled his decision to launch the war. Imagine, if you will, the weight of that decision, the gamble he took on the hopes of reshaping the peninsula. But Kim Il-sung wasn't alone in this endeavor. Across the Yalu River, another giant of history watched with keen interest, Mao Zedong. Now, Mao had just led the communists to victory in China, and he saw the Korean War as a chance to further cement communist influence in Asia. This wasn't just about Korea, it was about the global balance of power. Mao committed hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops, a testament to how high the stakes were, and leading those troops was a man who deserves his own spotlight, General Peng Dehuai. Peng was a seasoned military strategist, forged in the fires of China's own tumultuous conflicts. He was known for his tactical brilliance and his ability to inspire his soldiers. Under Peng's command, the Chinese forces would prove to be a formidable adversary, pushing back against the UN forces and altering the course of the war. Imagine the pressure on Peng, tasked with navigating a complex war on foreign soil, facing down the might of the United Nations. Now, let's shift our focus to the other side of this conflict, where we find a different set of leaders, driven by different ideals. In South Korea, we have Syngman Rhee. Rhee was a staunch anti-communist, a man who saw his nation teetering on the brink and refused to let it fall. He believed passionately in a unified Korea, but one that embraced democracy and freedom, a stark contrast to the vision of the North. But Rhee couldn't do it alone. South Korea found itself thrust onto the world stage, its fate intertwined with the emerging global order. Enter the United Nations, a fledgling organization still finding its footing in a world reeling from war. The UN rallied behind South Korea, sending troops from various nations to repel the North Korean invasion, and leading those troops, at least initially, was a man who needs little introduction, General Douglas MacArthur. MacArthur, already a legend from World War II, brought his strategic genius and unwavering confidence to the Korean peninsula. He conceived and executed one of the most daring military maneuvers in history, the Incheon landing. Imagine the audacity of it, landing troops behind enemy lines, a gamble that paid off spectacularly and turned the tide of the war. But MacArthur's time in Korea was short-lived. He clashed with President Truman over the war's objectives and was eventually relieved of command. Stepping into his shoes was General Matthew Ridgway, a man who faced the daunting task of stabilizing the front lines after a series of setbacks. Ridgway was known for his calm demeanor and his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. He focused on strengthening the UN defenses, ensuring they could hold their ground until a negotiated settlement could be reached. Chapter 3. Turning Points, Moments that Defined the Korean War. So far, we've talked about the leaders, the figures who shaped the course of the war. But now, let's turn our attention to the events themselves, the moments that defined this brutal conflict. Picture this, it's June 1950, a seemingly ordinary day shattered by the roar of artillery fire. North Korean troops surge across the 38th parallel, catching the South Korean army by surprise. Seoul, the capital of South Korea, falls within days. The speed and ferocity of the invasion shocks the world. Fast forward 3 months. The UN forces, initially pushed back, have regrouped and are ready to strike back. This is where MacArthur makes his move. The Incheon landing, a daring amphibious assault behind enemy lines, unfolds with clockwork precision. UN troops storm ashore, retaking Seoul and driving a wedge through the North Korean forces. It's a turning point in the war, a testament to strategic brilliance and sheer audacity. But the war is far from over. As the UN forces approach the Yalu River, the border between North Korea and China, a new player enters the fray. China, fearing an enemy on its border, unleashes a massive counter-attack. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops pour into Korea, pushing the UN forces back and plunging the war into a bloody stalemate. For 2 long years, the war rages on, a brutal back and forth along the 38th parallel. Millions of lives are lost, the peninsula scarred by relentless fighting. Neither side can achieve a decisive victory, and the war settles into a grim war of attrition. Finally, after years of bloodshed, exhaustion sets in, negotiations begin, and on July 27, 1953, an armistice agreement is signed. The guns fall silent, but the war doesn't truly end. A demilitarized zone, or DMZ, is established, a buffer zone between North and South Korea, a stark reminder of a war that never truly ended. Chapter 4. Echoes of War, the Enduring Legacy of Korea. The Korean War wasn't just a regional conflict, it was a global event, a microcosm of the Cold War rivalry that gripped the world. It was a clash of ideologies, of democracy versus communism, of freedom versus oppression, and its impact continues to reverberate today. North and South Korea remain divided, separated by a heavily fortified border, a constant reminder of the war that never truly ended. Families remain divided, separated by barbed wire and ideology. The two Koreas have taken vastly different paths, with the South becoming a thriving democracy and economic powerhouse, while the North remains mired in poverty and ruled by an authoritarian regime. The Korean War also solidified the United States' role as a global superpower, willing to intervene militarily to contain the spread of communism. It marked the beginning of America's long and costly involvement in Southeast Asia, which would culminate in the Vietnam War. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Korean War is the human cost. Millions of lives were lost, soldiers and civilians alike. The war left an indelible mark on the Korean peninsula, physically and emotionally. Even today, the legacy of the Korean War serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict. It highlights the fragility of peace and the importance of diplomacy in resolving international disputes. It reminds us that the wounds of war can take generations to heal, and that the pursuit of peace is a continuous process. A war remembered, lessons for today. The Korean War was a pivotal chapter in history, filled with unforgettable leaders and events. Which moment stood out to you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more history-focused content. See you in the next video.